The judge's voice echoed like a hammer against stone. "The girls have stated they feel safer living with their father." Before I could breathe, Lydia spun toward me, her voice cracking into a scream. "Did you turn them against me?" "Mom, did you?" Her words tore through that small courtroom in downtown Portland, and for a moment, I felt the whole world tilt. 3 months earlier, it was supposed to be a simple family dinner in my old Selwood home, the kind with mismatched plates and the hum of comfortable noise. But comfort had been slipping from this family for a long time. And that night, it finally snapped. Lydia dropped her fork dramatically, letting it clatter against the plate. "This looks like something scraped off a cafeteria tray," she announced, loud enough for every person in the dining room to hear. Then she added, "Even I could do better." Her daughters went still. Nora stared at her lap as if bracing for impact. Ella's lower lip trembled before she caught it between her teeth. They didn't defend the meal. They didn't even defend themselves. They just folded into themselves like they always did when their mother's temper sharpened. Harriet Quinn, my neighbor and the closest thing I had to a sister, shifted in her chair beside me. She didn't say a word, but her eyes flicked toward the girls with quick concern. I steadied my breath, lifting my glass the way a person does when they need their hands to stop shaking. I looked directly at Lydia, my daughter. 42 years old, brilliant, exhausted, and sharper than she ever needed to be. "I didn't cook tonight," I said quietly. The room tightened. Lydia's smirk faltered. Confusion flashed across her face, quick and mean, like a spark she didn't understand. Nora's fingers curled into Ella's. Neither girl spoke. They didn't look embarrassed. They looked frightened, as if my daughter's words had struck them personally. Harriet's hand found my elbow under the table, a silent warning that I knew better than to ignore. I felt it then, the shift, the unraveling. This wasn't about food. This wasn't even about me. This was the first crack in something much larger. Something that had been splintering inside these children long before this dinner ever happened. And it would only get worse from here. I used to believe my daughter's sharpness began in adulthood, some hard edge formed by stress or marriage or the relentless pace of her job. But the truth lived much farther back, in the years when it was just the two of us in a rented apartment near Laurelhurst Park. Lydia was 8 when her father left. No long explanation. No long goodbye, just a note taped to the kitchen counter saying he needed space. I worked 2 jobs after that. One at the library and one cleaning offices in the evenings. Every time I left her with a frozen dinner and a kiss on the head, I told myself I was doing it for her. But kids don't hear intentions. They hear absence. One evening, she sat at the table drawing quietly, while I rushed around gathering my things for my night shift. "Will you be home before I go to sleep?" she asked. "Probably not, sweetheart," I said. "But I'll check on you when I get in." She nodded, but her eyes didn't follow me. They stayed glued to her paper, the pencil pressing too hard. Years later, Daniel came into her life. He was steady in a way her father never was patient. Gentle, someone who could turn a bad day into something bearable. Lydia clung to the calm he provided. But she tried to shape him too. "You should dress better for work." She'd tell him, "You should aim higher. You could be doing more." Daniel would smile, always soft. "I'm content." Lydia, that answer only frustrated her more. When Nora was born, Lydia hovered like a hawk, charting feeding times, measuring sleep cycles, demanding perfection from a newborn. By the time Ella arrived, the pattern was set. Lydia didn't raise them so much as monitor them, adjusting them like they were levers in a machine she needed to keep running. I tried to intervene once. "You're too hard on them," I whispered during a visit. She pulled her hand away from mine. "Someone has to set standards." Mom and I, exhausted from years of juggling life alone, let the moment pass. I chose peace instead of confrontation. I chose silence. Now, watching Lydia at my dinner table, cold, sharp, and blind to her daughter's shrinking bodies, I knew this version of her didn't appear overnight. It had been growing quietly, like a stubborn root we never dug out, and now it was breaking through the floorboards. Nora and Ella always arrived the same way, quietly, almost cautiously, as if crossing my doorway meant stepping into a different kind of gravity. The moment they saw me, both girls would wrap their arms around my waist, holding tight as if they needed to confirm I was real, that safety was real. "Can we help?" Grandma Nora asked one afternoon, her voice barely above a whisper. "You don't have to." I told her. "We want to," Ella said quickly, already reaching for the mixing bowl. They worked side by side, silent but focused, shoulders brushing each time they passed ingredients. Whenever a cupboard door shut too loudly, Nora flinched. When a car passed outside, Ella glanced toward the window like she expected her mother to walk in at any second. That evening, after the girls went home, my phone buzzed. An email from Ella's teacher, Miss Avery Coleman. "Ella has been experiencing frequent stomach aches. They seem connected to stress. If possible, I'd like to discuss her home environment." I stared at the screen, my heart starting a slow, painful thud. I typed back quickly. "Everything is fine at home. Ella just worries sometimes." It was a lie, and I hated how easy it came out of me. The next morning, Harriet stood in my kitchen pouring herself coffee as if she lived there. "You look guilty," she said without looking up. "I'm fine," I replied. She squinted at me. "You keep covering for Lydia. Why she's overwhelmed," I said. "Overwhelmed doesn't make children fold themselves in half." Harriet shot back. "Those girls walk like they're afraid of breathing wrong." I didn't answer. I didn't have one. Later that week, Lydia came to pick up the girls. The moment her footsteps hit the porch, Nora went rigid. Ella tucked her chin down, shrinking in on herself like she was bracing for judgment. "Let's go," Lydia said sharply. "We're late." Neither girl spoke. They just moved toward her, small and silent. I watched them walk away, a cold heaviness settling in my chest. Everything they did, every careful movement, every held breath was shaped around not disappointing her, even though they hadn't done anything wrong at all. 3 hours before that dinner, the one Lydia shredded with a single sentence, my kitchen sounded nothing like the silence that later swallowed the table. It was full of breathless giggles and the clatter of spoons against mixing bowls. "Grandma, can we make something special?" Nora asked, eyes bright. "Mom's had a rough week." Maybe if dinner's nice, she'll relax." Ella nodded eagerly. "Can we do the chicken recipe you made on my birthday? The one with the rosemary?" I hesitated, but their faces were so hopeful it hurt. "All right," I said. "But if we're doing this, we're doing it together." They sprang into action. Nora chopped vegetables with the seriousness of a surgeon, tongue peeking between her teeth. Ella washed the herbs and splashed half the sink in the process. "Oops," she squealed. "It's only water," I said, laughing softly. "Mess is welcome here." They beamed at that. When the vegetables were roasting, Nora pulled a folded note from her pocket. "I want to put this on Mom's plate," she whispered, "so she knows we tried our best." She didn't show it to me, but I caught a glimpse of her messy handwriting, big loops, uneven lines, so much heart pressed into it. "Of course," I said gently. "We'll make sure she sees it." By the time we set the table, they were glowing. Ella kept smoothing the napkins. Nora kept adjusting the silverware so each piece was perfectly straight. "She's gonna like it," Ella whispered. I touched her cheek. "You two did something kind. That's always worth liking." Hours later, after Lydia dropped her cruel comment, after the girls' shoulders folded, my hand slipped beneath the tablecloth and brushed something paper-thin. Nora's note. I had tucked it away the instant I realized what Lydia's words had done. "Mom, we made this for you. We hope it makes you happy." I had to swallow hard to keep my voice steady. Lydia kept talking, oblivious. But across the table, the girls weren't embarrassed, they were crushed. Their pride didn't break slowly, it shattered in a single breath. And I understood the truth Lydia didn't see. She hadn't mocked me. She had mocked the only people still trying to love her. Ella found me in the kitchen the next morning, moving slowly, holding the sleeve of her sweater like she was afraid to wrinkle the air around her. She didn't look up when she spoke. "Grandma, did we ruin dinner? Is Mom mad at us?" Her voice was so small it barely reached me. I crouched down, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. "Sweetheart, you didn't ruin anything. You worked hard. You were thoughtful. Your mom wasn't upset with you." Ella swallowed. She looked mad. She was careless. I said gently, "Sometimes adults say things without thinking." I wanted to say more. I wanted to tell her her mother was wrong, blind, too sharp for her own children. But I still wasn't ready to tear away Ella's idea of who her mother should be. Nora walked in a moment later, her eyes flickering between us. "Did you tell her?" she asked Ella. "I asked," Ella whispered. Nora sighed, sitting at the table with her back too straight for someone her age. "I hid the note," she said flatly. "The one I wrote for Mom." She looked at me. I knew she wouldn't have liked it anyway. "Why would you think that I asked?" "Because nothing we do is enough," Nora said. No anger, just exhaustion. That was the moment I reached for my old spiral notebook, the one I used to jot recipes in. I opened to a blank page and wrote down what happened at the dinner, including the girls' reactions. My hand shook, but I wrote anyway. Later that afternoon, Daniel stopped by to pick them up. He looked worn, his shoulders heavy. "The girls told me they're tired," he said quietly. "Not sleepy, just tired at their mother's place. Tired how I asked. They don't explain," he said. "But it's not the kind of tired sleep can fix." I felt something settle inside me, solid and cold. I had spent years softening myself for Lydia, smoothing her edges, excusing her storms. But the girls didn't have that luxury, and they were starting to carry pieces of her anger in their small bodies. When they left, I opened the notebook again and kept writing. Silence was not going to save them anymore. Lydia showed up without warning, pushing through my front door as if she still lived there. She didn't glance at me or the girls' toys scattered near the sofa. She just crossed her arms and said, "You need to start helping more." "I cannot do everything." I set down the dish towel in my hands. "What kind of help are you talking about? Pickups? Drop-offs? Meals? Homework? Whatever needs doing." She said, "You're retired. You have time." There it was, the entitlement she wore like a coat. She never took off. "I cannot take that on," I said quietly. "I have my own life." Lydia, her eyes snapped to mine, sharp as glass. "Your life, you mean your gardening and your little neighbor coffee dates, Mom. Be serious." "I am serious," I told her. "I am not your built-in childcare." She laughed, one loud, disbelieving bark. "You're old, not busy. Stop acting like you are doing anything important." The words landed harder than I expected. I steadied myself. I said no. Lydia stepped forward. "You owe me. You were never around when I was little. Now you finally have the chance to fix that. That is not how this works," I said. Before she could spit back, the front door opened and Daniel stepped inside. He froze, taking in the tension instantly. "What's going on?" he asked. Lydia whirled toward him. "Your precious ex-mother-in-law is refusing to help. She wants to sit around while I drown." Daniel stared at her. "She has helped more than anyone." "You do not get to speak to her like that." Lydia's mouth fell open, rage choking her silence. I watched her struggle for control she no longer owned. She finally grabbed her bag and hissed, "You two deserve each other," before slamming the door behind her. The room stayed still for a long moment. Harriet appeared from the hallway. She'd heard everything. "She is not done," she murmured. "People like Lydia don't stop when someone finally says no." My hands trembled slightly. Not from fear, at least not entirely. Something deeper settled inside me. Something steady. For the first time in years, I had protected myself, and part of me already knew Lydia would come back fighting. Lydia showed up 2 days later, her footsteps sharp against my porch, as if she intended to break the wood beneath her. She didn't even knock. She pushed the door open and marched inside. "Why are you turning everyone against me?" she demanded. "Daniel, the girls, even that teacher. Everyone has something to say, suddenly, and it all traces back to you." I closed the notebook I'd been writing in and set it aside. "No one is turning anyone against you." "You are," she snapped. "You are always talking behind my back. If people think I am a bad mother, that is on you. It would have been easier, safer to soothe her, to talk her down, to swallow myself again. But something in me finally refused to bend. I have not said one word behind your back. I said, but I am done protecting you from the truth." Her eyes narrowed. "What truth?" "The dinner," I said. "The one you tore apart in front of everyone." She rolled her eyes. "For heaven's sake, Mom, you are still stuck on that I didn't cook that meal." I said. "Your daughters did." Her face went blank. "They spent hours working on it. They wanted to make you proud." My voice stayed calm, even though my chest ached. "And you insulted it before they could even breathe." Lydia shook her head, as if refusing to accept it. "No, they wouldn't. That doesn't make sense." A small voice came from the hallway. "We did." Nora stood there, fingers twisted in the hem of her shirt. She stepped forward slowly, as if unsure whether she was allowed. "We cooked it," she said. "Me and Ella. And you said it looked disgusting." Lydia stared at her daughter like she was seeing a stranger. "Nora, sweetheart, I did not know. You should have told me." "We were scared," Nora whispered. That word struck the air like thunder. Scared, Lydia repeated, stunned. "Every day." Nora said, "We never know when you'll be mad. We never know what we'll do wrong." Something broke in Lydia's expression. Shock, disbelief, a flicker of shame. She reached for Nora, but Nora stepped back. I stood and spoke before Lydia could spiral into excuses. "You have been hurting them, Lydia. Not with your hands, but with your words, with your impatience, with the way you demand perfection from children who only want to be loved." Lydia turned to me, voice shaking. "I am their mother. I love them. Love is not enough," I said. "Children don't know love unless you show it." Nora disappeared down the hallway, and we both heard her door shut softly. Lydia sank into the nearest chair, her breath uneven, her certainty crumbling right in front of me. And for the first time, she understood that the damage was not imagined, it was already inside her daughters. Growing. 2 days after Nora's confession, Miss Avery Coleman called me herself. Her voice was tight, careful. "Both girls are showing increased signs of anxiety," she said. "Ella cried through math today. Nora refused to participate in group work. I need to report this." My stomach dropped. "Do what you need to do," I told her. An hour later, social worker Marilyn Jacobs was at my door. She was calm, steady, the kind of woman who made you want to tell the truth. She listened, asked quiet questions, then eyed the notebook sitting on my table. May I see that I handed it to her? She flipped page after page, every date, every detail, every small moment I had forced myself to record. Her expression didn't change, but she nodded slowly. "This helps," she said. "Thank you." That evening, Daniel showed up looking like he hadn't slept. "I filed for temporary custody," he said, voice low. "I cannot keep pretending the girls are fine." I exhaled hard. Do you think the judge will grant it? I think the girls will, he said. The hearing came fast. Too fast. Lydia walked into that room determined to win, her chin high, her posture stiff. She didn't look at me. She barely looked at her daughters. When it was their turn to speak, Nora's voice trembled. I feel safer with Dad, she said. Ella pressed her face into Daniel's sleeve and whispered, I want to stay there. Lydia's face collapsed. Girls, no. You don't mean that. She stammered, but neither child looked at her. The judge took a long breath, then delivered the ruling. Temporary custody is granted to Mr. Right. Lydia made a sound. Half gasp, half sob. She turned on me instantly. You did this. You poisoned them against me. I stayed still. They told the truth. Lydia, all I did was listen. She sank to the floor, hands shaking. Her certainty shattered in front of strangers who did not know her history or her excuses. For the first time in her adult life, nothing she said or demanded changed the outcome, and nothing she controlled belonged to her anymore. The first week after the custody ruling, my house felt different, not fuller, not louder, just lighter, as if the girls' fear had been holding the walls too tight. Nora slept through the night for the first time in months. Ella laughed at breakfast, a real laugh that cracked open something in my chest. Grandma, can we bake tonight? Ella asked one morning. Only if you promise to make a mess, I said. And she grinned like she finally believed she was allowed to take up space. Harriet stopped by every afternoon, carrying board games or warm bread or whatever she thought might help patch the pieces back together. They're blooming, she whispered once, watching Nora help Ella with homework. Keep doing what you're doing. But Lydia didn't bloom. Lydia clawed. 2 weeks in, I got a call from the registrar at the girls' old school in the Alberta district. Her voice was careful. Ms. Carrington. Your daughter attempted to re-enroll Nora and Ella this morning. We cannot process the request without the legal guardian. She told you she was the guardian I asked. She insisted on it. The woman replied, but when we pulled the forms, the emergency contact listed was you. The air left my body, me. Yes, she said gently. Both girls changed it themselves. That was the moment Lydia's control didn't just slip, it vanished. She arrived at my home that evening, eyes wild and glassy. They chose you, she said, her voice breaking against the words. Not me. They put your name. I didn't answer. There was nothing left to defend. Nothing left to argue. The truth had already settled where it belonged. She looked past me, toward the hallway where the girls were playing. But they didn't look up. They didn't run to her. They didn't whisper her name. They stayed where they were steady, safe, home. And in that stillness, something inside Lydia finally cracked in a way custody court never managed to touch. Lydia showed up just after sunset, standing on my porch with the look of someone who had run out of battles to fight. She didn't storm in this time. She just whispered, Mom, tell me how to fix this. I stepped aside but didn't invite her farther than the doorway. You cannot fix what you refuse to see, I said. I am their mother, she said, voice thin but desperate. They are supposed to come to me. You do not lose children all at once. I told her. You lose them one unkind moment at a time. Her face tightened. I was trying. You know I was trying. You were managing. I corrected. There is a difference. She pressed a hand to her mouth as if holding back a sob. Do they hate me? They are hurt, I said, and they are healing somewhere you did not create. Before she could respond, Daniel stepped onto the porch, holding a manila envelope. The attorney finished the paperwork. He said, Emergency guardianship. Isla is now legally allowed to make decisions for the girls if I am unreachable. Lydia flinched, as if he had struck her. You gave her that authority over me. Daniel's voice stayed calm. Because she uses it. Because she shows up. Silence spread between us heavy. Unblinking. Lydia finally turned back to me, eyes swollen. So that's it. I just lose everything you can rebuild, I said. Steady and firm. But not here, not with them, not until you choose them over your pride. She didn't scream. She didn't argue. She just nodded once broken, small, and walked away. Inside, Nora and Ella ran toward me, arms open, laughter soft and certain. I knelt and held them close, feeling their trust settle against my skin like something earned, not taken. If you're still here, thank you for listening to our story. Like, comment, or subscribe if you want more true family dramas told from the heart.